In 1983, Jimmy Snuka was one of the biggest babyface stars in all of pro wrestling. His infamous Superfly splash inspired countless wrestlers, including Mick Foley, to pursue the profession. While Snuka's in-ring career would be at an all-time high, his personal life would drag him down to the darkest depths. How a 30-year cold case followed the tortured superstar until his final days. In this Title Match Network exclusive, we'll show you the only existing interview where Jimmy Snuka is asked about the allegations that derailed his rumored title run and ultimately shattered his career. 1983 looked like sky was the limit for Superfly Jimmy Snuka. He was married with 4 kids and was enjoying huge success in the WWF. On the side, Snuka began dating a young woman named Nancy Argentino. According to his former manager and wrestler Buddy Rogers, Snuka was also heavily drinking and doing lots of coke. January 1983, Snuka wound up in a giant brawl with 9 police officers and 2 police dogs. Reports say he was dragged to the cop car in his underwear and charged with assault on his girlfriend Nancy. A few months later, those charges would be dropped. Fast forward to May 1983, Snuka booked for WWF in Allentown, Pennsylvania. After arriving at the George Washington Motor Lodge, Snuka left Nancy in bed and headed for his match versus Jose Estrada. After wrestling that night, Snuka arrived back to the hotel, where he called the front desk in a panic. Just before 2 a.m., Nancy Argentino would tragically lose her life. Snuka would go on to tell multiple versions of the incident, but in this exclusive interview that we licensed from RF Video, Snuka is asked directly about what happened. This is the only recording that shows Snuka's reaction.
Now, a lot of people, I don't know if you want to talk about it or you don't want to talk about it, the George Washington Motor Lodge incident, what happened with that. It was a big thing that, I believe it was one of the times you left the WWF for a couple months.
Ooh.
You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
Yeah.
All right. What led you leaving to the WWF?
Snuka was back wrestling for the WWF just 8 days after the incident. Despite the coroner suspecting foul play, despite the media coverage, Snuka would not be charged. The investigation, while still open, would go cold for the next 30 years. On screen, however, fans would never know what was going on in Snuka's personal life. By October 1983, Snuka was making history in that legendary steel cage match versus Don Morocco.
Sometimes you dream about them matches, brother, especially the cage match. Don, we would get in there and I'll give him goosebumps. He'll get goosebumps like, here's a couple of wild animals that's inside this cage and now they're gonna cut it loose, And that's the feeling we had. It's like, go in there and just let it go.
And things didn't stop for the Superfly in the new year either. March 1984.
The most famous angle that I think you were ever involved in would be with Roddy Piper.
Yes.
And the coconuts.
Yeah, you got it. Nobody forgets the coconut, right? When we worked that angle on TV there with the coconut, the bananas, and the whole works, that's the Superfly's whole story right there, That's the plan, was to build up to that. And it was nice. Being that I was from the island, and he was a guy, really cocky guy, and I thought it would work out perfect. Having him to do that, it really worked out great.
After his feud with Piper, Snuka was easily one of the top baby faces in WWF. But soon after, things took a detour when, according to Snuka,
things changed when, when the old man died and, Vince Jr. took over. That's when everything changed.
Right.
Because what the father had in plan in mind, the son didn't follow up.
What did he have in plan?
Well, there was big things that was going to happen, like, becoming the world, champion or, whatever. The build up to this whole thing. And
they wanted to put the belt on you.
Yeah.
Senior wanted to put the belt on you and Junior didn't want to.
Exactly.
Vince McMahon Sr. would pass away on May 24th, 1984. Later on the following year, Nancy Argentino's family would win a $500,000 wrongful death lawsuit against Jimmy Snuka. Now on TV, Snuka was still in the main event scene and seemed like a shoo-in for a high-profile match at the first WrestleMania. or so one would think.
Did it make you angry that you were not involved in the original WrestleMania?
No, not at all. Because if they wanted me, they'll call me, But
Right.
I was happy to be part of it anyway.
The very first WrestleMania, instead of a match in the main event, Jimmy Snuka was booked ringside in the corner of Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. By June 1985, Snuka was gone from the WWF. He went on to tour Japan, and in 1986, Snuka headed to Minnesota for Vern Gagne's AWA. Jimmy Snuka would return years later to the WWF in 1989, but never again at the main event level. After a memorable WrestleMania 7 loss to The Undertaker, Snuka left to work the independent scene. 32 years later, Superfly Jimmy Snuka was charged in September 2015.